Welcome to IQD Dinar News, your go-to source for the latest updates on currency exchange rates, revaluation news, and insights into the Iraqi dinar. Stay informed and ahead of the curve with our timely analysis and breaking developments. The notion is that even though banks might be in possession of dinars or at least have knowledge about them, the entire process of exchanging these dinars for other currencies, or allowing individuals to cash them out, requires a level of preparedness and understanding that may not be consistent across all levels of the banking system. The question of whether there will be enough knowledgeable staff to assist customers is a valid one. The reference to the upper echelon of the banks indicates that even the higher-ranking officials or executives are only now starting to become aware of the Iraqi dinar and its potential implications. This suggests that while the information may be trickling down through the ranks, it hasn't necessarily reached all the relevant staff or been fully integrated into bank procedures. When a currency revaluation or significant shift happens, banks typically need to update their policies, train their staff, and implement systems that can manage the new circumstances. In the case of the Iraqi dinar, if the revaluation occurs, the banks may find themselves in a situation where the demand for exchanges suddenly spikes, and they must be able to respond quickly and effectively. Moreover, the idea that no bank officer is allowed to buy dinars adds another layer of complexity. If bank officers themselves are restricted from purchasing the currency, it implies a level of caution or regulation surrounding the dinar. There could be multiple reasons for this restriction. It might be to avoid conflicts of interest, as bank officers who could potentially influence the rate at which the dinar is exchanged would be in a position to profit unfairly from insider knowledge. Alternatively, it could reflect broader institutional hesitance towards the dinar due to its volatile history or political associations. The process of currency revaluation, especially for a currency like the Iraqi dinar, is inherently complex and often shrouded in speculation and uncertainty. The IQD has been a topic of interest for many years, with proponents arguing that it's undervalued and predicting a future revaluation that could significantly increase its worth against other currencies, like the US dollar. Others, however, remain skeptical due to Iraq's political situation, economic challenges, and the fluctuating nature of the currency markets. If a revaluation does happen, it would mean that the value of the dinar would be adjusted to reflect a different rate in comparison to other currencies. In practical terms, this would affect anyone holding dinars, whether they are individual investors or institutions, such as banks. For banks, this would entail adjusting their currency exchange systems to account for the new rates, ensuring they have adequate liquidity to handle exchanges, and training staff to manage potentially higher volumes of transactions. There's also the question of regulatory oversight. For a currency revaluation to be implemented smoothly, central banks and regulatory authorities typically provide guidelines and frameworks for banks to follow. However, if bank officers are restricted from buying dinars, it could suggest that there's still an air of caution around the currency, potentially because the rules governing such transactions are either unclear or subject to change. It's also possible that the restriction is a precautionary measure to ensure that bank officers do not engage in speculative behavior that could destabilize the market. For the average bank customer, these internal banking issues may not be immediately apparent. They might simply be focused on whether they can exchange their dinars when the time comes and at what rate. But for the banks, the preparation involves much more than just having dinars on hand. It's about having the appropriate systems and trained personnel in place to facilitate what could be a highly anticipated and high-volume exchange process. If the dinar were to be revalued at a significantly higher rate, it could lead to a surge in demand for exchanges. People who had invested in the currency in hopes of its revaluation would suddenly want to cash in their holdings. Banks would need to be prepared to handle this potential influx of transactions. If they are not adequately prepared, there could be delays, logistical issues, or even temporary limitations on the amount of currency that can be exchanged at any given time. These factors could cause frustration among customers and potentially create a perception of instability, even if the underlying economic situation is sound. The role of bank staff becomes particularly critical in such scenarios. If the higher-ranking officials are only just becoming aware of the nuances related to the dinar, it raises questions about the level of preparedness among frontline bank employees who will be directly handling customer transactions. If bank employees are not well versed in the specifics of the dinar or the logistics of the revaluation process, it could lead to miscommunication, errors in transactions, or even the dissemination of incorrect information to customers. Training bank staff to understand the intricacies of currency exchange, especially in a scenario involving a potentially significant revaluation, is no small task. It involves not just technical training but also an understanding of the broader economic implications. Staff need to know how to handle various scenarios, from large volume exchanges to customers who might be unfamiliar with currency trading terminology and procedures. In a situation where there's a sudden increase in exchange requests, banks would need to be able to scale up their operations quickly, which might involve bringing in additional staff or extending hours to accommodate the demand. The restriction on bank officers buying dinars also signals an effort to maintain a fair and stable currency exchange environment. If those in positions of authority within the banking sector were allowed to buy the currency before a revaluation, it could create ethical issues, such as insider trading concerns or conflicts of interest. Such actions could undermine public confidence in the banking system's integrity. By prohibiting bank officers from purchasing dinars, banks can avoid these potential conflicts and present a more impartial stance. Nonetheless, this restriction might also deter some within the banks from taking the currency seriously, viewing it as a sign of risk or instability. For those skeptical of the dinar's prospects, the prohibition on purchasing it could reinforce a belief that it remains a speculative and uncertain investment. On the other hand, for those banking on a revaluation, it could be interpreted as a signal that the banks are taking precautions precisely because they expect a significant shift in value to occur. Ultimately, if the Iraqi dinar is to undergo a revaluation, banks will need to balance between being cautious and being prepared. They will need to ensure they have enough trained staff to assist customers, have policies in place to manage potential surges in exchange requests, and provide clear communication about the process. This requires coordination not just within individual banks but also with central banks and other regulatory bodies to ensure a seamless transition. The bank's ability to manage the exchange of the dinar effectively will also depend on the broader economic conditions at the time of the revaluation. Factors such as Iraq's political stability, international trade relations, and oil revenue will influence how smoothly their revaluation process goes. Additionally, the involvement of international banks, currency traders, and financial institutions will play a role in determining the rate at which the dinar can be exchanged and how accessible the trade is to everyday customers. For individuals holding dinars, the key question will be whether they can trust the banking system to handle the exchange process competently and transparently. If the banks can demonstrate preparedness and offer reasonable exchange rates, it will foster confidence among investors and the general public. However, if there are signs of disorganization or lack of clarity about the process, it could lead to skepticism and reluctance to participate in the exchanges. Thus, the bank's internal restrictions, such as not allowing officers to purchase dinars, could be part of a broader strategy to present an image of fairness and integrity in managing the currency revaluation. However, the success of the revaluation will ultimately depend on more than just internal policies. It will require coordinated efforts across the banking sector, sufficient training for staff, and a transparent approach to managing the exchange process. Thanks for tuning in to IQD Dinar News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more updates on the Iraqi dinar and global currency trends, hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.